let's put on our Swami hats and get out our crystal balls and see what we can conjure up in terms of what wild, crazy things 2025 could bring us. What do you think, Dan?
I think Vol is back.
Hello and welcome to Unqualified Advice, an entertaining show for entertainment purposes. Join us as we talk about running our businesses, what we've been learning, and how we're applying lessons from academia and real life as entrepreneurs and investors. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Topics discussed represent opinions represented by parties with different circumstances than your own and should not be taken as advice. Any discussion of securities or other investments should not be relied upon as investment advice. Consult your personal financial advisor and perform your own due diligence. Podcast hosts, guests, and clients of Fig Social Capital may own positions in securities discussed in this podcast.
Hey, back at it. Same
what a year.
clothes.
What a
Same clothes,
year.
different week. What year?
Same clothes.
Different year.
Different year? What a year it's been, Dan.
It's been a Friday, man. Anybody having deja vu if I say, someone told me it was Friday today, and I was like, is it?
I think, yeah, somebody...
If you're listening to our episodes back to back, then you're going to be really disappointed.
Yes. Yeah, that's no doubt. I'm sure... hopefully you have a temporal...
In the intro. Disappointed just in the intro.
Yeah, I mean. Exactly. Because we are looking back almost, it's actually a year and 5 days since the last time when we first recorded some predictions for 2024. It was December 15th of 2023. So we're sitting here, calendar date, December 20th, just to put a timestamp on this in case something weird happens between now and when this gets released, talking about our predictions that we made coming in for the year. We want to kind of grade ourselves, see how we did, make fun of ourselves, pat ourselves in the back, and then talk about what we see coming up for our bold vision, we'll call it, for 2025. But first, I think let's go right back into the time machine here and hop into a clip from early recording last year. Let's see if we can make this technology work, Dan.
Yeah, so for prognosticating 2024, I think we continue, I think we see a rate cut before June.
Yeah.
And, it really depends on the numbers after that, but I think we'll see a couple of rate cuts next year. And maybe some softening around the consumer.
So the
not a recession.
I don't think we're going to see a recession in 2024. I'm with you on that. I'm going to put a note down that we're both saying no recession. I am worried about the back half of the year, and I'm worried about a couple industries specifically. I see some weakness in energy.
Okay.
And depending upon how the year goes, there could be some problems in energy in the back portion of the year that could maybe trickle outwards.
Okay.
PC had. All right. So for starters, we both were thinking a rate cut by June. Missed that. What was it? September before the first cut actually took place?
Yeah, for a total of what the first one was 50 bips and then two more 25s. So down a point. Is that right?
I believe that is correct. Yeah, we got two more 25s, didn't we? So yeah, down a whole point. I think we were expecting cuts, obviously. At the beginning of the year, though, I think everybody was projecting 4, 5, 6 cuts. So we were, and we'll get a little more into that here in the next clip.
So you can cut how many times at 25 bips to get to some percentage, or you could cut so many times at 50 bips and get to, or like a full point cut, or like the number of. It was interesting that I look back on it now, and I didn't write this stuff down, so I don't remember it. But number of cuts versus can you actually tell me
the magnitude of the cuts?
Yeah,
I'm looking back at it now. It's next time if we're doing
my bet should have included not just
forecast.
A rate cut. It would have been we're gonna cut by a point in 2024.
Exactly. Exactly. On that note, let's dive right into the next clip, and then we'll kind of digest these two together in tandem. So, what are the predictions we got for 24? I don't think we're going to see the rate cuts as deep as people think. I think it's going to be limited to 2, maybe.
I think 2. Yeah, I think 1 sort of first half, and then maybe 1 second half. And I think those rate cuts could play that event at the end of the year. Very importantly. So if the economy not continues to, but if it is softening in such a way that, I mean, the hive mind already believes that the economy is terrible, even though it's not.
Obsession.
So if that feeling grows, Biden's in huge trouble. For whatever reason, people think Trump is good for the economy. Just couldn't hold my opinion back on that one, could I?
No, neither of us could. So overall, wrong on the number of cuts, wrong on the timing of cuts. But again, I think magnitude, I was in that realm of my thought process being 2 cuts of somewhere between a half and 1%. We got towards probably the higher side of what I was thinking. If I was being honest at the beginning of the year, I was probably thinking closer to 3/4 of a point, half to 3/4. So yeah, maybe a little further than what I thought we would cut, but definitely slower. And I think that was what our theme was at the beginning of the year, was that things weren't going to move quite at least mine, as quickly as some people has expected, given where the economy was, because the economy wasn't showing the signs of weakness, which we also talked about later in that episode, that the Fed would traditionally want to see to inspire
validate.
Cuts. Exactly. Yeah. And now I think the next thing we would say is, we'll talk about this in 2025, but I think that the Fed's posturing is changing quite a bit in this exact moment. But overall, Dan, I don't think there was a recession this year, was there?
No, consumers stayed strong. There's part of me that feels like it's starting to weaken a little bit now, but also animal spirits are back in a strange way because of, the whole like economy stupid thing around Biden was true and accurate and definitely played out. And I think there's a certain sort of unleashed attitude that is taking place right now.
I agree. It feels like a little bit of a mania, though. This week we've had some tempering a bit with certain. Well, I was gonna say like the S&P was off a bit, and Dow's been off, but there's been moderate tempering in certain areas where it's not a full on bull everywhere. It's
not a full on bull everywhere, but Jay Powell said we probably are gonna lessen the amount of cuts next year because the economy is strong, and then the stock market sells off.
Yeah. What does that mean to you? Means that the economy is not as strong as we think, or no, actually.
To me, it carries over to a discussion of like trying to lay down our predictions for 2025 rather than reflect on our predictions of 2024. Fair
enough. So those were the main predictions from the first part of the episode. There was one more prediction that I'll play here now. Okay, I think there's going to be some weird, huge ESG scandal next year. I've been reading like Matt Levine like all year, and just like the wild stuff going on in that space. Like it's just rife for something blowing up, and everybody like, what is like these carbon credits are fake. Like we've been reselling these trees 15 times, like something like that. Like a really good piece he had.
I haven't really liked that joke. It's still funny this year.
Well, good news. I got this one right. CQC was indicted by the Justice Department in October for a fraudulent carbon credit scheme around their gas cooktops that they were deploying in Africa. We talked a bit about this at length in an episode earlier this year, so I won't go into too much depth here. But yeah, this one was the one prediction where I actually feel like I got it right, and the one where I was having some fun with my predictions. So yay me. Yay me. Unfortunately, we didn't do a big long list of predictions last year, so that's really all we have to recap. But overall, we had a sense of some things.
It was these are predictions. You're trying. how reviewing this of what and how we did it, what kind of changes do you want to make for our predictions coming up?
So I think we need to make sure we have, in general, where possible, actual metrics, like more specifics. Like we had a number of rate cuts there, but are we actually talking about the correct magnitudes when we're assigning some of numbers on things that can be predicted? And I think also talking about who cares exactly what the Fed's going to do up or down next year. I think I'm more interested in. I think it's more interesting to look at what are some of the broader things that are going to happen that we see happening in the world and at large, rather than just is there going to be a recession and is the Fed going to cut? Well, what are some of the crazy things that are going to happen this year? Because I feel like with the regime change we got going on, we're going to see some craziness this year. And man, let's take some swings. Let's be creative. Let's put on our Swami hats and get out our crystal balls and see what we can conjure up in terms of what wild, crazy things 2025 could bring us with Trump and Elon and Doge and everything that is forecasted at this point. What do you think, Dan?
I think Vol is back. Have I already said that on an episode? Like that's what's been on my mind.
Vol is back.
Yeah, and trying to be cognizant of being able to participate in that a little bit too, because I do think that as much as I was in denial around the first go round, I do think that they have some way of like telegraphing these things to an extent. So if you're listening, you have a chance at participating in the markets around some of the changes, rather than just like paying attention to the, Pelosi trades Twitter account,
which is entertaining. If by depending upon your definition of entertaining, if you like to feel rage as part of your entertainment, I guess.
I'm trying to avoid rage as much as possible.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Maybe interesting is the word I'm looking for, not entertaining. Interesting to check out what the various members of Congress, how they're trading, because man, they do seem to have some good info, don't they?
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Dan? What do you think about how we should be thinking about our predictions for this year? What would we do differently this year than we did last year, in your opinion?
I started thinking. Well, I agree. Some sort of I guess some of these predictions require some sort of metric or grounded way to measure it.
I was just thinking about, I did a lot of time looking at Poly Market this year, and they had a lot of, when they have a contract resolve, it's a very specific thing that says, yes, this resolves one way or the other. I think too many predictions are made where it's, oh, well, yeah, that could be interpreted as right, or that was definitely, I want to say at the end of 2025, looking back on it, yeah, I was way off base, or yeah, I was kind of close, or I was
it's like being at a trading desk and saying I have this idea and this thesis about the future state of our world, but you have to find a way to express it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's in the markets somewhere, and therefore definable and measurable.
I agree.
I don't know how well we'll do with that, but
I don't know how well we'll do with that either.
The public or the ether that we're going to do better than we did last year. That's it. That's our measurable outcome right there. We're going to do better than we did last year.
We're going to do more, and we're going to do better. That's what I say. Okay. I want to start off with my first one, which I think this is to me a slam dunk, and I think it's easy to measure, and I just can't see how it doesn't happen. I think IPO activity next year at least doubles year on year. Number of IPOs in the United States. With the rate cuts that happened this year, it takes a while for those to cycle in through the system, and other things happening within the system, where we saw an increase in 2024 over 2023 moderately. But I really think next year is going to be a much bigger increase year on year in terms of total volume and in percentage, just because we're into a part of the cycle where also markets, as they get frothier and valuations get bid up, people are going to want to tap that public window, and a lot of those private holders that have been holding these companies now for a lot of them since really pre-pandemic, some of these private valuations have been building, I can't imagine that some of those holders aren't going to want to tap some of that value. What do you think, Dan?
I think animal spirits are back. I don't know how long they'll last, but animal spirits are back. That's like my overarching sort of headline on what I think you're saying, which is activity is going to go up. I think M&A is going to go up. But, there is this feeling of getting after it that is going to happen. There's, what is it, the QBI? There's like a tax thing that's going to sunset here, but with the incoming administration and controlling both chambers of Congress, like I'd be really surprised if it didn't get extended. And then just tax cuts in general, extending them, keeping that, like, I don't know, who knows how much they'll get slashed or whatever, but keeping whatever cuts they can in place will be number one priority, right? Which I'm saying that only because I think that if people can future cast themselves as having more cash in their wallet, then they do more stuff.
Yeah,
and that's plumbers to bankers, up and down.
I think there's it's very much behavioral psychology, right? When you're feeling optimistic, you behave with a little more risk in your step, in a way. You're
I think that's what America is best at.
Yeah,
optimism and risk taking.
We're pretty damn good at it, that's for sure.
We need to get better, I say. Let's stay on top.
Absolutely. Dan, what's one of your predictions for the year that you think is just a slam dunk? No way this can go wrong.
The best business model ever continues, which is Amazon ads and Google ads.
Okay.
Despite some tumultuous thoughts around people and search and Google's business model going forward, I think the Google ads business remains like incredibly strong. And then of course, Amazon ads, just an unstoppable force. So any unlock on margin anywhere in the world is eaten up by Amazon ads and Google ads. So the minimum workable margin for sellers will remain at minimum always. There'll be some fluctuations or whatever, but anytime there's a raise from 7% margin to 11%, Google ads will come in and bring that back down to or Amazon ads will bring that back down to 7%, because anywhere there's margin, people will move in and then they'll advertise over their competitor and yada yada. Ads win.
Wow, that just clicked for me. That's powerful. That's really powerful. Who is there? Is there anybody else in that game outside of Google and Amazon? Like, why isn't
Meta? Right. Like it really depends on your business model, right? Like if I'm an Amazon, like if your primary business model is Amazon, then you're not advertising on Meta. But if your primary business model is your own personal or own branded website, then you're probably more Meta. But yeah, it still applies.
Is that also, product?
Don't bet against Zuck. That's my
yeah. I'm feeling that right now. Interesting. I like that. That's a good prediction. So how does that play out then? How do we measure that? Like, I guess we could look at they report their ad revenue, right? So we could look at year-on-year ad revenue.
We could pick one or two or three of the companies and maybe like percent of revenue or something. So ads revenue versus total revenue.
Amazon, Google, and Meta. I like that as a the big three right now, right? And look at year-on-year revenue. I'm just going to make a note here. Or
ads revenue specifically.
Ad revenue.
They're complicated businesses, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, Google also might see some weird stock price action this year because they just added on, I think, what some people might be considering the next buzzword in the market, quantum, into their retinue, right? So,
we discovered that the multiverse is real, so everyone should go read Dark Matter.
Yeah, exactly. Or watch Rick and Morty at least.
Yeah.
It's a little more. No, it's cruder. It's less accessible. I don't know why. It's just funny though.
It's just funny, yeah.
Yeah. So I think Google's if your prediction is true and what I think the animal spirits feel about quantum, the way they've latched onto AI in the last couple of years, then I feel that Google could be in for some outperformance next year, which means they're probably going to just go to shit, but we'll see.
Yeah. Optimism, John. Optimism.
Yes. No. Loading up on Google, on Alphabet, I should say. Okay. Well, moving on to our next predictions here. What is a good one that I have that is measurable? I think. Go ahead.
Port strike.
Yeah. So I'm going to call this. I'm going to make a prediction around a tumultuous labor environment in 2025 between two things. One, port strikes happening at the start of the year. I think a potential for other strikes throughout the year. We have the USW. I'm sorry, the steelworkers. The big sale of U.S. steel that's going through that could cause may or may not be going through that could cause some interesting ripplings in that industry. And then also just so one, port strike's going to happen. Two, I think we see at least one other significant strike that is newsworthy. And three, I think we see an overall, I need to figure out what the metric is for this, but an increase in layoffs year over year from 2024 to 2025. And I need to find if I can find that on, like, if a Fred data set has that or if a BLS data set has that, but I'll find a consistent metric that I can look at year on year, because I think we're going to see an increase in the number of layoffs.
Can you prognosticate? You don't have to make this part of your prediction if you don't want to. Can you prognosticate what drives those layoffs?
Well, actually, hold up. Before I say it's just an increase, let me also say a notable increase of at least 20%. Like if it's up 5%. Okay. Well, like I mean, I'm saying, like, from this level's baseline of layoffs to next, I think it'll be about a 20% minimum bump. Why I am saying that is that we have those animal spirits going on, right? And so there's going to be some extra hiring that happens, but then there's also going to be some sector rotation that happens. And when that happens, I think we tend to see, we're going to have kind of a euphoric front half. And then I feel like some falling to reality a little bit. I don't think it's not like recession level. I'm not saying we're going to have a recession. I'm just saying we're going to have a correction sometime late next year. And there's going to be some impact in the job market resulting from it. That's my prediction. I'm not saying we're doom and gloom. I'm just saying there's going to be a bump in the road. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. I would go further.
You would go further? Well, you can go further on your side of the predictions, Dan.
It depends. I don't, this is going to be one of those, like, fun clips to play. I don't know that it's like a super real prediction from me yet, but, like, let's pretend that Vivek and Elon a la Doge, like, make headroads, and people are just, like, in the streets going, rah, rah, do it. And we've got an extra 2 million unemployed in the matter of, like, months. And then they all stop spending money. Their whole household stops spending money. Unemployment spikes because of, it's like, I think, I don't really think that'll happen, but some version of it might, right? Where the second half has a lot more difficulty in it. And I don't know if those are technically layoffs or they're going to be firings, or if they're, how are they going to get labeled? Therefore, how would they play into your thing?
That's fair. I would count that in what I would consider in terms of layoffs, like changing. I guess I feel like that's going to take longer to play out in my head, which is why I was saying I didn't think it's going to be as big this year, but maybe you're right though. That's a good point.
I think their mandate has a short time frame on it.
That's true. If they don't get that fuse lit, it's not going to, right? I mean, it's more likely that Elon falls out of. It's more likely that Elon falls out of favor with Trump by the end of the year than anything.
Anything, yeah. I mean, he's like sleeping at Mar-a-Lago or something. So,
just wait till they have one grumpy discussion and, like, it just blows up in everybody's face, right?
I just hope it's on video.
Oh boy, that would be great. All right, interesting. All right, Dan, what's your next prediction for the year?
Jay Powell is told to buy Bitcoin.
I love this one. When I saw you put it down, I'm like, damn it, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
I almost would have put this as a slam dunk if I had thought of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The strategic Bitcoin reserve. I just found out. I forget where. That all the Bitcoin all the Bitcoin that has been confiscated by the U.S. government is now has been moved into Coinbase. So Coinbase, at least for now, seems to be the custodian of USA owned Bitcoin. Interesting.
I mean, why don't they put it in cold storage? Or whatever,
We
right?
got Fort Knox,
Right? Let's put it with the digital gold with the real gold. Hell, talk about a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's so if that happens, you don't have to make I'm not going to hold you to this unless you want to write it down, but what do you think that does to the price of Bitcoin for the year? If we're starting off around 100, do you think we end up 10, up 20%, down 5, down 10?
At the end of the year, that's my gate.
Yeah, like
flat.
I
think it'll go up, but I think it'll end flat.
Okay, because Sailor will be done
tying back into
then.
that back half of the year feeling from me of like, well, if unemployment's up and there's just more people wandering around without incomes, then people will, if any of these people have any, they're going to sell it, and there'll just be less buyers because there's less economic activity generally, and woe is me sort of attitudes around stuff, and that's self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Yep. Okay, I like those calls. I'm not. I think. I tend to think Bitcoin's going to end the year higher than flat, but that's me.
How much? Flat's 0, right?
Yeah.
Up is how much?
We'll say flat plus or minus 5. We'll call flat plus or minus 5. Like with the Bitcoin's volatility, frankly, right?
Yeah, well,
if it was, within 5% of where it started the year, like if I would call anything up to like even 110 kind of flattish for the year, frankly.
I agree, because the expectations are that it should be like 200 or something.
Yeah.
Or if the U.S. government is buying up as much supply as it can get, then it would drive the price.
What I think is going to happen, that'll drive up some prices, but it's not going to happen as much. And like I think we'll end up like maybe up to like 120, 125. Like it will be a year that's up, but like people will be like, why is it up more? And it's like, well, because
Jay Powell was told to buy Bitcoin, but the headline didn't include how much he was supposed to buy, and really they were just confiscating everything that the FBI has confiscated, and now it's like, look at this huge pile of Bitcoin we have, but we only bought 100.
Yeah. Also, do we know that they haven't been buying Bitcoin anywhere in the background, and that they don't I
don't know what the rules are around.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a B school professor once that said, "You better believe the Fed's buying Bitcoin," and that was 3 years ago. And he was, had retired from the Fed here in Houston. So
interesting.
I don't know.
Yep. We don't, and maybe we won't know. Maybe that's the other outcome that we need to have on our radar, is that we won't know the answer to this question. It'll seem like I was wrong, but like in fact, we didn't know that we were
right. Okay. My next one, I think, is moving to kind of the scandal front, a little away from economic metrics. I like the scandals because they're fun to think about. I'm like, I try to think about what's gonna catch the interest of the world this year. So we had our ESG scandal in 2024, kicking us off for the first, and we're gonna have some more of those. Don't get me wrong; those are going to continue. But I think we're due for a scandal somewhere in private equity or private credit this year. We've had a lot of movement to the sector. Private equity has been continuing to grow in popularity over the years. But private credit specifically has really picked up in interest in market share. How much more money is being allocated towards those vehicles, and with all of between private credit funds that have been started and all the private equity funds that have been sitting there holding these startups for a long time right now, they like to, eventually, move those, have sales on those and basically move to the next round of funding or move those companies forward. I don't think we've seen as much activity and what's what I'm looking for. the functioning of that system has not been happening quite as well as it had in years prior. And I think this year, as markets are raging, people are going to get access to their money, and we're going to see some weird, some scandal about people trying to, get out of maybe one credit vehicle into another, one equity vehicle into another, and something blowing up. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I feel like we're primed for it.
Given how the pipes work and how things have changed, especially in private credit over the past 2-3 years, I think you're right.
It just feels like
2025 could be the year. Especially if that's this back half that we keep talking about. If things get a little wobbly, that's when you what's the
that's Buffett, what I'm thinking. I'm thinking quote? that's where and it's kind of where we were at the beginning of last year too. Is that we thought the first half was going to go pretty well and the back half would be okay, maybe some shakes. This year I'm feeling a little more confident in the shakes in the back half of the year, for some reason, and I don't. And that is that just human nature? Rather than, should I just be saying? Should I just be bold up and saying nope? Everything's gonna be perfect this year, plus 20% across the board at least. Just risk on. Like it's this. There's enough momentum here to steam through and keep us to 2026. Ooh.
I'll say that this is exactly what's been on my mind, and I think did I tell you, or I don't remember if I said it here, or if I said it to another friend. I was like, again, call it denial, call it I was traveling the world and wasn't really participating, whatever, during the last term, and had no job for the majority of, anyway. Now I'm sitting here thinking like, all right, radical acceptance. I have no excuses. It's time to make money. Everyone did last time. And I was looking around going, how did I miss all of this? And this time I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth and wish it away.
Now that's also is that a sign of a top when things are about to blow up and
exactly.
Everything's about, like, I don't know which way.
This is what's hard.
Yeah.
And this is why the people that do really well at this get paid crap tons of money.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They deserve it because it's hard.
It's really hard. Yeah.
So I think that's one. I think that's one scandal that happens this year. The other thing I think is an ongoing scandal from this year. We saw this year the DEI pendulum starting to reverse with companies like Ford and Harley and Walmart, abandoning their DEI programs and saying we're really going to think it in the coming years. Target got sued last week for securities fraud, because they didn't list their DEI policy as a disclaimer in their K or whatever, their annual report. And so then they had the boycott over their DEI policy. And so now they're being sued for securities fraud because they didn't list out that as a possible risk. Probably frivolous and probably won't go through. But I think because of things like that, I think we're going to start to see, we've already started it this year, last year. Yeah. We're going to continue that sea change of, falling back asleep or going, whatever you want to call it, the unawakening.
The unawakening. Yeah.
I think we're going to continue to see that shift around, big companies that are, representing large swaths of the American workforce, where these policies have been enacted, also probably at continuing also in, some of the education spaces as well. We've started to see that the Supreme Court basically came out last year and said that affirmative action is illegal, the way that University of Michigan's been applying it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the basis of a lot of DEI policies right there even.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people argue that it's just outright racism.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or selectivism or whatever.
Yeah. So those are my scandal picks for the year. What I think is going to go on kind of in the social space.
Okay, so for social.
Well, I mean, like I'm talking about looking at like my scandal, between, I guess private equity is not a social space, but then the DEI is kind of a social space scandal, right?
I see. The hive mind.
Yeah, hive mind type of thing.
Okay. I'm gonna piggyback on some of your like port strike happens and layoffs year over year thing, and say that I had written down that strikes are more common but don't connect.
Yeah, I wanted to ask what you meant by that.
I wrote this before I read the headlines today, and in reading the headlines today, I see that there are Starbucks employees striking. There's like some Teamsters that have infiltrated Amazon warehouses that are going on strike. And Amazon's basically like, yeah, doesn't matter. Starbucks, I don't know what their response is going to be exactly, but like and then you've got the thugs that are the longshoremen. I don't know. Like, at what point do these headlines hit with such frequency? And this new animal spirits attitude of like, get on with it.
Mm-hmm.
How does that manifest into like the right kind of sympathy for strikes, right? Like the whole make America great again shouldn't be about work stoppage or like fighting fellow Americans, right? Like I just feel like there's this disconnect with well, there's a disconnect with labor and capital. There always is, but I don't there's something about it that I feel like they're not going to get the traction that they hope. I don't know how to make this measurable.
You mean so? Yeah. So what you're saying is there'll be these strikes, but without, by and large, the workers won't get their demands met.
Yes.
If you had to guess.
Yes.
That if you were to come down at the end of the year, you would say of these X number of strikes that we ended up seeing,
people mostly
1 out of 3,
yeah,
the worker really succeeded, essentially, type of situation.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll directionally we can work with that. That's a directional enough. I think that's that makes sense as well, because I do think there is an attitude of, man, like I really just question, what are we doing with unions? Like, what are we really trying to? What are we really trying to achieve? And
hammer looking for a nail.
Yeah.
Not every time, but more often than not now in today's world.
Yeah, exactly. If they feel more exploitative than protective at this point in many situations.
Well, they have to find something to yell about to show that they still have value.
Yeah, and they have to, because they charge so much in dues, and they have to justify their
big organizations. Yeah, imagine if you just returned all that money back to the workers.
Hey, there's where we need to put some AI in. Is how do we go lean out the union orgs with AI, so that way you can
take home more money or put more in retirement.
Yeah, there you go, and don't have to pay your union boss enough to walk around with a Rolex Oyster everywhere.
Yeah, driving Bentleys. Yep,
exactly. Okay, I like that as a prediction as well. Dave.
Interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
You had a couple others on your list here that I was kind of curious about, though. So, anyone you want to go to next? SEO for LLMs or a garden refresh for apps? I think those are both kind of interesting spaces.
Yeah, the SEO for LLMs, I actually don't think it'll happen, because I think like you can't game AI. Like you can ask it the same question and get a different answer. But I was just thinking about it, like if you give the world a system, the world will try to game it and take advantage out of it, right? So with search, like what was the problem it was solving? Well, the internet is a big place. We're trying to find things. I'll help you find it via search. Yeah. And then people game that system. And now part of why Google stinks so much is because so much of it has been gamed. So I guess this at this point is less prediction, more question of what does the future look like with LLMs once people begin to try to game them? / are they gameable?
Are they gameable, I think, is the bigger question, because of how they're trained, right? So you would have to...
Well, fundamentally how they work, let alone how they were trained.
Yeah. How they work. Yeah, you're right. Fundamentally how they work and how they're... Well, how they work, and then also then the data set on they're trained. It's both. In many ways.
Yes. Like you can install bias. Yes.
Yeah, you can install bias through the data set that you train it on, but the fundamentals of how the process, I have no idea actually how they work myself.
Most people don't. There's like 8 people in the world that do.
Yeah. So maybe they can game it.
Yes. Yes.
Probably 6 of those 8.
Throw Sam Altman a new Ferrari, and maybe you can game a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a few, I think. So anyway, I guess like that's I put it in here because I just thought it was thought provoking, and it was like maybe in 2025 there's like more of a thought process around this. It's less a prediction, but more like it's on my radar. Like, how does this begin? Right?
This will be coming. This will be in the consciousness in 2025. Essentially,
Yeah, maybe. But like once this is unlocked, if ever, it will be another kind of gold rush. Right? There were people who printed dollars just optimizing their website for Google, and they had nothing to sell but words on a web page, right? Which is really remarkable if you think about it, right? Like some of these people made way more than best-selling authors.
Well, but fundamentally though, like LLMs aren't going to bring you traffic like in that way, right? It's a different.
I don't know. Now that I'm using ChatGPT a lot now, and it will include links now.
Oh shit.
So like, what if I'm on a walk and I'm talking to ChatGPT, and we stumble across this idea that I find really interesting. I'm like, hey, GPT or whatever I call you, like
service provider that does this.
Is there a blog article, like a lengthy, in-depth blog article that you're basing some of your information off of that you could send me that I could read later? And it will, or a study.
I see what you say. Yeah, okay. I like this as an interesting question then. Shit. What do we do with that? How do we work with that, Dan?
I don't know, but it's on my radar.
My question, what do we do with that thought?
Okay, so the next one that's more actionable, and I think like if we had, 1 million people listen to this podcast, and 10% of them took action, there still would be just gobs and gobs of opportunity left. Garden refresh of apps. Everyone lives in a different ecosystem. We all use different apps for different things. Some apps we like, some apps we don't. But think about the apps that have terrible user interfaces, terrible designs, and are just old, but still make money. You could go onto Sensor Tower and figure out how much the app makes. And with the aid of AI, I think instead of looking at some apps thinking like, oh, that thing only makes $100,000 and it's going to cost me $250 in order to completely rebuild it into something modern and nice, therefore it doesn't get done. With AI, I think it's going to be like, oh, well, this is going to be like, for someone that really knows what they're doing, maybe a week and like a couple grand, and you're going to see this remarkable opportunity set of modernizing a whole bunch of different things around the internet, iOS, Android, so on.
I think I need to figure out how to design an app. You're so right. No, we need to connect with Anton on this and get him on to get his thoughts. I feel like
That's true.
I feel like
okay. So my example right now is like MyFitnessPal, which has been bought and sold by how many companies, right? Like the thing is totally forgotten. No one's paying attention to it anymore, but it still remains like the most popular calorie counting app in the world. And then there's this like 17-year-old bro.
How many of those user bases are sticky because they have data sets like in that app now? It'd be the problem.
Doesn't matter. There's new people coming.
Okay.
That's how I look at it, right? Like short term, whatever, long term greedy, right? Like in the short term, if I make something and replace something in this garden and it makes okay money for the first 5 years, that's cool. Bought beer money, awesome. But then on the back half there, it's really fresh and makes some good money. Cool. There's also way you can promote it, and you can there's switching costs, but I bet anyway, then there's like this, I forget, he's 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, out of California somewhere. And he created an app called Cal AI. And the thing is just gangbusters. He's making like $1 million a month. And it is the modern AI enabled calorie counting app.
And it's just a wrapper.
No, it's a whole new app built.
No. But I mean, it's an AI wrapper though.
Yeah, he didn't build an AI company. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. So he's built an app that's that's an AI wrapper replacing an old, 10-year-old. Let's get Anton on and actually interview him about this and to kick around some ideas, because I feel like this is a fruitful space here in the next few years that we would be foolish not to think about in more depth. Because like oh man, is there a app I can put on my phone that surveys all my app usage so I can see which of these apps are, which of these, you're right. Absolutely, it is. But see which of these apps are probably prime for a makeover. Although, like, My thing is the future is a world without apps.
Oh, there's plenty of money to be made between now and then.
Yeah. Okay. But I just feel like at some point that application layer becomes less visible. And
perhaps,
it's just the
but
agent layer.
But if you build the app now, you've got the data, you've got the users, you've got the experience. True. You could still parlay that into the next world.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You're right. Just think about long-term risks and like long-term vision.
Yeah, well, I mean, if let's say that you were really good at this and could get it done, and you built up a small portfolio over the next 5 years, and you made 12 grand, and then you make 5% off of that. I mean, 12 million, and then you made 5% on that 12 million for perpetuity. Are you happy?
I don't know. I probably not, because of the way humans work. But no, I don't know. No.
Setting aside human nature, can you stay alive on that and be reasonably happy?
Yes. No. Yeah. That would be wonderful. I'm thinking about how human nature really is, and yeah, sure. Anybody can be happy. Will you be? I don't know. Yeah. No. Actually, that would be amazing, right? I would be thrilled. That would be awesome. That would be a no.
I think it's if the stock market is on average 8% over the extreme long term, and you're only pulling out 5%, then you've got you're not touching your principal. You let it grow just a tiny bit, and you're pulling out $600K a year. There's some people with some rich tastes, but I think that would be plenty for me.
I would be dandy, right? Yeah. I would that'll buy a steak, and that's all I need. Yeah, like you said, but even a rich steak, I can afford that.
You could have that steak cooked for you.
Exactly. Oh, I could get one of those new induction stoves that I really want now.
Impulse Labs.
That I heard about on Odd Lots.
How was that episode?
Really good. I enjoyed it. I would recommend. They talk about the sensor technology they had to develop and like why it works and why it's superior. And now all I can think about is someday I'm going to have one of those, but it's not going to be for another 5 years or something, because they're like $6,000 a piece right now.
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah. Okay,
they're
pretty cool though. I saw Nick Kokonis tweeted about them. I don't know, 3 months ago or something.
Yeah. They basically can like dry sous vide something. You can just put it in a pan, set it. Say I want this steak to be 130 degrees. Come back and the steak's 130 degrees, and then you can say now sear the outside of it, and it'll sear the outside of it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The differentiation for professionals is going to get whittled away, right? Think about the best chefs and like
listen to the Odd Lots episode. They talk exactly about that. Like,
really?
Trace,
okay.
yes.
I'll go back and listen.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one for that. Exactly. Talking about then, because Tracy was saying, oh, well, one thing I'm really proud of myself is I've worked to become a pretty good cook. And Joe's like, yeah, I can't cook for shit, but we could both make the steak the same, essentially,
Yeah. That's wild.
Because they actually like have these sensors that detect the temperature of the food as it's being cooked in the pan, like it built into
that is sci-fi stuff.
Yeah. And so they're totally,
you've got the device, and then you've got a pan, and then you have the food, and they have sensors that know the food.
Yeah, they're using LiDAR sensors to detect like what's going on.
No wonder it's $6,000.
Yeah. So I want one. And someday,
yes.
once I build these fleet of apps, I'll be able to do that.
Yes, totally.
Well, Dan, I think we've stuck our necks out for a couple of ideas. I'm sure there'll be things that happen that we could have thought of that we didn't spend time thinking about or talking about. But I think as far as some interesting things to look out for, I think we've laid out some groundwork at least.
Yeah, totally. And since, we sort of did like the previous episode was a bit of a recap and a look back, and this one was a little bit more of a look forward. I follow this executive coach. Her name is Dr. Julie Gerner, and she posts some really great stuff from time to time. And I'm going to read everyone just a little post that she put out recently, which is get crazy about your life. The more you dislike yourself, the more you are disconnected from yourself. The more you are dissatisfied with your life, the more power other people have over you. Just a friendly reminder, commit to yourself. Spend time with yourself, meditate, breathe, learn to be comfortable alone, invest in your passions, invest in yourself, your books, the content you watch, educate yourself, journal, get to know your beliefs so that you can change them to suit your goals. Celebrate yourself every day. the more you fall in love with your choices and your life, the more powerful you become.
Lovely thought. I like that.
I just try to collect little mantras and things to remind myself of.
Is there a link to that we can pop in the show notes as well for people that want to if they want to come back to it?
I will find a way. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, then on that note, I think we're going to say, let's go kill 2025, everybody. We're going to have a great year. We're going to
crush it.
We're going to crush it. We're going to radically accept the punches as they come.
Yes.
And
tell the world
it.
Thank you for what it tells us.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you for tuning in.
Yes.
We'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.